Three, two, one. We are back. My friend David Bishop, how are you doing?
I'm staying warm, Mark. How are you?
It's a little chilly, isn't it?
eGrocery is fire. It's on
Ooh.
fire. eGrocery is on fire.
The 2024 Q4 market share report. David,
Yeah.
give us the headline.
Well, I think if I boil it down to three key learnings, one is the growing power of the mass retail channel, especially online. We're seeing it in store. Second, and this relates primarily to mass, the importance of delivery and expanding market share. And then third, as we look at the business year over year, the evolving market dynamics that continue to swirl around and affect both delivery and pickup in different ways.
Let's talk about the year-over-year sales growth and where you see this. Not to put on your wizard hat and
Yeah,
prognosticate, but what does it portend, at least for the next quarter?
I think first of all, let's step back. Fourth quarter year over year sales growth across all three channels up over 30%. It's just absolutely amazing. This is building off of sequential surge that we had in quarter three that was north of 20%. Both of those quarters have really reset the baseline business, and we can still see the seasonal patterns flowing through the quarters. So what this may mean for first quarter, or at least what we're anticipating, is a similar lift in year over year sales going into the first quarter, but not significantly higher than the absolute sales rates that we're seeing in the fourth quarter. So in other words, we're going to keep seeing the momentum carry into the 25. And again, our expectation earlier on, I think we talked about before, was it's really going to continue through at least mid 2025 as we're lapping the start of a lot of these aggressive promotional drives that has spurred this newest S curve in the grocery. We have seen a strong, steady growth in order frequency, which again, we could speculate is attributed to more households engaging in those subscriptions or memberships, which then incentivize them to simply use it more often to save more.
David, let's double click on that a little bit more in terms of order frequency. What have you seen in terms of the growth month over month?
Yeah, so as we're looking at that, Mark, we are seeing an increase in order frequency. And again, keep in mind, up until recently, we had seen a gradual but steady decline in order frequency as we were kind of retrenching the market. And that's been established. And now we're on the upward swing. And the subscription and membership component of it, we believe, is what is the catalyst driving the increased order frequency that we're capturing on a month over month basis.
What takeaway do you see coming out of this report?
The importance of delivering and expanding the market share. And this is primarily for mass and Walmart in particular. I think what's amazing in the report is if we looked at mass's share of e-grocery dollars over the last 3 years, so comparing fourth quarter 21 to fourth quarter 24, that format has gained 10 percentage points overall across all three formats. If we were looking only at the delivery business and mass's share within that sales segment, they've grown over 20 percentage points in the last 3 years. And most of that has gone to Walmart. So what that has shown is how delivery can effectively expand the reach and market share of the low price, one of the low price leaders, in that it overcomes some of the issues that they were facing with customers who were hesitant to shop at or with the retailer. And so I think that's a really impressive insight. Now, what supermarkets can do about it, that's another issue.
And again, this is delivery through first party, correct?
Yeah, Walmart predominantly is available only through the Walmart.com site. They are available in select markets on Instacart's marketplace, but if we're looking at the top 100 markets, we're talking less than 15, maybe 15% of the top 100 markets may have a presence. But even that, we would have to talk a little more about in terms of what that really means, because the devil's in the details.
I cut you off before you were going to talk a little bit more about what it means for supermarkets. Before I go there, are we looking at a have and have not mixed experiences here, where regionals are not seeing this explosive growth and are therefore more basically put back on their heels consistently and going forward?
I think in general the answer would be yes. However, I would need to condition that there are national supermarket players who are actually growing delivery quite well. And the same thing would be said with a select few regionals. However, they're executing different strategies than the mass of tier 2 and tier 3 retailers. The challenge for the supermarkets is, how do you compete when effectively your biggest competitor, who has significant lower prices, is able to grow their delivery business in a way you can't, right? And primarily the reason why Walmart's on fire with it is, again, that discounting on the annual membership really just removed a lot of barriers to adoption and usage. And that has just spurred a lot of demand for them. But when that happens, they removed one of the biggest friction points for delivery, which is that explicit delivery fee. So once you've signed up for the membership, you're not dealing with an explicit delivery fee unless you choose to get an expedited order under their express service, right? And then you pay an additional amount. The only explicit additional fee that you have is the tip. And I would imagine sometime in the future that could be defaulted to zero, or potentially go away or changed in some way that will only strengthen their options. And Walmart was looking at some of their key competitors in their formats. They could probably find some interesting ways to do that. I'm not going to tip my hand, but they're out there. So the point is, it's only going to become more difficult for the regionals to compete. So they need to find ways to differentiate, right? I mean, let's be clear. You could look at some of the natural and organic players, and they're doing extremely well online.
Like Sprouts.
So again,
like Sprouts, yeah.
yeah. So it's not all about price, right? It's about
So
understanding who your customers are.
we've talked about this before, and we talked about it just before this show. The multi-dimensional aspect of value. Let's dig into that a little more, because in as much as we're focused on mass, I also want to talk about the hard discount segment,
Sure.
which is, if you're a regional, you also have your eye on. So let's talk about the value mix first.
When we look at value, and we need to remember, it is a function of many elements, as you mentioned, Mark. So price, without question, is going to be extremely important. How important depends on many other variables, right? The economic conditions, what households we're talking about in terms of income level, etc. Then beyond that, obviously, you have the products, right? Product quality. So whether we're talking store brands or national brands, having the products people want is important. Then we have service elements that we need to look at, whether we're talking about in store or in online. And I should also add, part of price and service, there's those explicit fees, right? So that becomes a component of it too. And there are a few others. But as we look at that, especially relative to online, convenience generally reigns king, with pricing in a close second for most. However, if you're in the discount segments, price is going to be king and convenience will be secondary. What folks like Walmart are doing is really leveraging their scale to drive key levers to increase the value from their proposition in a way that's very hard to counter if you're a regional. And a lot of this is aided by their tremendous growth in their retail media dollars that are used and applied to this part of the business as an offset for those investments.
Let's talk about the hard discounters, because in your market share report for online, the hard discount segment is significantly smaller than the regional grocer as well as the mass retailer. But in store, you're saying they're killing it. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, we do our price checks based on a large basket of commonly purchased items. You're well aware of that. We've done it with Mercatus before, and in some of our most recent work, after all the retailers' major rollbacks, if you recall, Walmart, Aldi, Target, Kroger, whomever had a lot of rollbacks. But after one of the more recent sets, the in-store price gap between Aldi and Walmart is absolutely staggering. We put it at over 20%. In other words, you could save 20% by buying comparable products at Aldi compared to Walmart in store. Now, Aldi online marks up their products. We're not going to talk about the amount, but they still lead Walmart, who does not mark up products online, by a significant gap. Now, we know that because we've done the comparisons. Aldi customers know that because they shop there. But those people who don't shop there don't know that, especially the Walmart customers who don't shop there. So I think what Aldi may be doing is trying to promote or highlight to those who haven't shopped with them how much they can save so they can consider them as an option. However, they're going to face similar headwinds as Walmart has as they try to move up market, especially in the physical world, because the more affluent households have, in some cases, a preference not to shop in that format for a variety of reasons.
But you are seeing an increasing crossover between the two segments, between Walmart and Aldi.
So if we looked at those households who were buying groceries online from hard discount, say Aldi, and then also doing the same from mass like Walmart, similar to what we report in the monthly, their crossover rates, I believe, if my memory is correct, is actually a little higher than supermarkets. And that makes sense because our shopper profiles show that the demographic breakdown or composition of their customer set is actually very similar to that of Walmart's, or as compared to supermarkets, which tend to have a bias toward more affluent households.
What's your last takeaway from this report, David? What do you want to leave the audience with?
There are a lot of subsidies still in the market that are driving demand towards delivery. What I want to point out is while delivery may have grown year over year over 30%, pickup grew over 10% year over year. And during normal times, that's impressive. But what's even more impressive is that pickup was able to do that in the face of increasing competition from delivery, which was being really fueled by all those discounts and promotions and focus from all the different players. But pickup has been able to grow essentially without much, if any, support. Very few regionals, I can put on one hand and not have all my fingers used, the number of regionals that promote a subscription or membership that ties in directly or explicitly with pickup. Furthermore, pickup is the lower cost option, but at the same time, that just simply means they don't have the explicit cost to remove to, spur demand. So we have organic growth in pickup that's north of 10%, even at the same time when delivery is sucking a lot of the wind out of the growth sales, but that's being heavily subsidized. Now, it's maybe subsidized in smarter ways today than before, but the point, though, is don't take your eye off pickup, especially if you're a regional, because the delivery business is only going to become much more competitive for you going forward. So, your point of differentiation is more likely going to fall on the pickup side than in delivery.
And I mean, that's an interesting point. I mean, at least one last question. The appeal of pickup was always the greater sense of control that customers would have over the experience. Given the developments in delivery, the maturation, the evolution of the experience, do you see the control aspect waning, or is it shifting more towards delivery? What is it that you see as, what's changing the balance here?
Good and bad news. The impressions are changing. Control is actually swinging towards delivery now. That's the good news in terms of perceived control. Bad news is that's happening in mass, but not in supermarkets. And again, I'm not going to go into this. I'm not going to go into the specific tactics that those retailers are using to increase the perceived control that a customer would have, which would again influence the attractiveness of using it, right? I mean, if you think about, hey, I got a 2-hour window, that is not necessarily something a customer is really excited about because they're not sure exactly when it's going to come. However, there are tactics that the retailers are using on the delivery side that is addressing that issue, in effect, redefining in our eyes how we measure on-time delivery,
Interesting.
because
Yep.
the goalposts have moved. Now, the issue is supermarkets haven't embraced those same tactics yet, or to the same degree. And what we can see in our likelihood to repeat using the same service mark from the monthly work is that over the last 2 years, while pickup has maintained the competitive gaps or the spread between what mass and supermarkets have, mass has just run away from supermarkets in their repeat rates on the delivery side. And we believe part of that is in some of these executional elements that is
Yeah.
improving the perceived level of control a person has. Because again, keep in mind with pickup, we were saying a person has a time slot, but they determine when
That's
they
right.
go before,
Yeah.
during, or after that time slot. And the level of uncertainty that they're then dealing with is now framed in terms of minutes, not hours, because it's now tied to how long they have to wait for the order once they, pulled up to the pickup point. Whereas in delivery, that has changed dramatically over the last 2 to 3 years. And I'll give credit to Walmart. Walmart has done some things that have just really been very impressive that we're not seeing from some of the marketplace providers, although some of the newer marketplace providers are doing a really good job with this too. But where we're not seeing as much of that necessarily is with first party in the regional space. That's an area of opportunity for them to look at. Again, that's something that, as you know, Mark, we go into more details on one-on-one basis with those
Yeah.
retailers.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Super interesting. On that note, so David, any retailer that would like to continue that conversation with you can reach you how?
Best way to reach me is just send me an email at david.bishop@brickmeetsclick.com. I'm happy to set up a time to chat with you and talk further about some of those details or what we're seeing in the market and how it may impact your business or at least influence the way you're thinking about your business.
By all means, reach out to Mercatus at marketing@mercatus.com. And we'll be happy to put you in touch with David and also talk about some of the tactical operational execution pieces that David's referring to. On that note, Dave, great seeing you again, and we'll talk next time.
Excellent. Thanks, Mark.